So, ladies and gentlemen, Classic was updated 2 days ago, 1 day ago, 2 days ago, something like that. In the last days, depending on when you watch this video, Blizzard decided to update the clients for the Classic era servers. And guys, this is big news. This is not just a regular update. This is not just your regular bug fixes that go unnoticed and people don't even know what kind of bugs were fixed. This is an update that essentially kind of opened the door for things to come that the Classic community absolutely doesn't want. For those people who don't understand what's going on, let me explain this in further detail, because people need to understand the dynamic here. People need to understand what is actually going on and how it happened and why and where this is all progressing to. You see, this is an issue. The update that was rolled out seems to be the new predicament. The update that was rolled out seems to be the new direction in which Classic is going, Classic era servers. And you have to understand, we always go back to the story of the old servers, the private servers that started coming out in 2013, 14, when WoW was facing this kind of issue where the game wasn't meeting the standards and the memories and the nostalgic feelings that people had in the past. So people thought, okay, we're going to go back to play the vanilla version of the game on private servers. So you had many private servers surge in that time period, and they were very, very popular at that time. Some of the most famous servers, maybe I shouldn't mention names to get this, not to get myself in any kind of trouble with Blizzard, but there were some private servers and people were just playing private servers much more than they were playing retail, even though retail was much more popular than it is even nowadays. Fast forward, Blizzard decided, okay, we're going to adopt the idea of vanilla WoW. We're going to introduce our own vanilla WoW to get the player base out from the private servers and put them into our own official servers. Everybody was happy. At the beginning, they didn't want to do this. They were hesitant. You had Brack come out and say, oh, you guys, you don't really like this. And then he kind of backpedaled and said, well, guys, we can offer you the option of pristine servers. Pristine servers, nobody asked for this. They said, yeah, well, this is going to be similar to the feeling, the hard, we think we know what you want, which is the hard feeling of vanilla WoW, and we can replicate that if we just remove some easy things in the game. Nobody wanted that shit. I'm sorry. And not even Mike Morhaime, the guy who was with Blizzard, he was the founder of Blizzard, and he was the one who oversaw the foundation of World of Warcraft when it came out, and he was the one who also witnessed the success and the skyrocketing success of vanilla WoW when it launched, right? And then this guy, Brack, comes along. He isn't even one of the original developers. He wasn't even there when vanilla was developed. He didn't see the struggles. He came when the company was already established, when they had an office, when they were, I don't know if he came after or before the acquisition, but he came later on, and he had the audacity, the outrageousness to go and diss the legend that made this company while the founders were still there. So Mike Morhaime didn't swallow that at all, and I think what happened backstage is that he made J. Brack, go and announce Classic on BlizzCon. He was the one who announced it, And during that announcement, J. Brack wasn't too happy about it. You saw it in his face. You saw it in his way, how he came out. I think he was stuttering a little bit when he announced it, he was embarrassed about this because he was the one who was against it. He basically championed the notion against vanilla WoW. And then he was embarrassed. I think the embarrassment came from the very top on him, that he is the one who has to go and announce that they're actually going to do official vanilla servers. And that's when Classic went out and the story came out and the game came out, and originally people had this hashtag no changes was a big hashtag, and every time they would introduce changes, people would go upset about it, but the changes that they introduced were surgical. And they used this term in the past. They used the term surgical changes. Surgical changes is a good term. It's a good term because the devs who were working on Classic originally, the Classic that came out now in 2019, were people who were on the vanilla team. So when they say that we want to make a surgical change, they know what that change has to be. They know the change that needs to be added. They know what exactly needs to be done to fix something or to alleviate a situation or some problems in the game based on what the players are doing. It's a very dynamic situation, so they have to do it. Those kinds of changes were somewhat acceptable by the community. Yes, sometimes some people would say, "Oh, I don't accept this." They're opening up the door to change the game completely, but it was never like that. They were the guards of this game from being rubbished, essentially, like retail was rubbished, and they were the guards. They would not introduce a change unless it was surgically studied, and it was very subtle, and it was never a change that kind of completely overhauled the game or something like that. It was never something of that sort. You see? Those people left. Those people have gone. You know, Mike Morhaime is gone. He didn't have much to do with Classic, but he's gone anyways. Omar Gonzalez, the guy who started to develop a prototype for Classic, is gone too. And the last guy who went is Birmingham, the guy who was on Lich King, right? He left. And I think my impression is that he didn't leave, but he was told to leave in a resignation, but actually he was pressured by the company, and he made that public on Twitter because he announced that he had some kind of problems with management whatsoever, right? So the people who had the game, who were running the game, who were protecting the game, they all left. Nobody's around anymore. And we thought, okay, whoever comes next, it's an easy job. Just keep the servers alive. Just keep the Classic servers as they are. They were functioning in a very, very good ecosystem. They were harmonious. The server was harmonious. The Classic era realm was good. People were playing the game and people were happy. Whatever changes came into the game, people were not too upset about it. And those who were upset about it went over to Turtle WoW. Nobody cared because the game was flourishing. Everything was fine. Everything was good. Maybe some problems within the community, things that the community is doing, like, I don't know, the overabundance of bots and overabundance of gold sellers and GDKPs whatsoever. People have different opinions on these things, on these matters. But the truth is that the bots never disrupted your gameplay. The bots have never taken away from you the game that you have played in the past and that you want to play now and that you signed up to play. They've never done that. They've never taken this away from you. Yes, they allowed gold selling. Yes, they allowed for many people to join the game that maybe you think they don't deserve to join the game. Well, that's your opinion, but everybody deserves to play whatever he wants to play, right? But there is no obstruction in your gameplay. It's not like you cannot enter a raid because a bot is taking your place. It's not like you can't go into PvP because there's a bot that's stopping you. It never happened. Bots were mostly confined to the gold selling community and people who buy gold. This never disrupted your gameplay. Even GDKPs would prefer to choose players who had experience in the game rather than people who just came in to buy things, right? And I can tell you stories about that. I can tell you personal stories about that. It's terrible. It's a terrible environment if you're not very familiar with the game. You have to be good at the game. So the bots never did anything, right? They never really obstructed your gameplay. They never changed the game as it originally was, and that's the difference. You see, the new update that came out, and this has to be addressed in further detail. The new update that came out a few days ago kind of did everything the opposite way. It wasn't just bug fixes. It wasn't just some surgical changes. It was an overhaul. First of all, the game menu has changed. They introduced the retail game menu into the Classic menu. The Classic menu was the original one from Vanilla WoW. The one that was designed with a user interface from the past that everybody liked. You know, it's not just the game that people like. It's not just the mechanics that people are in for Classic. Oh, we don't care about other things. No, that's a wrong identification of what a Classic player wants. A Classic player wants the graphics. He wants the old graphics. He wants the old art. He wants the old style. The feeling of the style, the things that you can't really measure in words or in numbers. It's not just about mechanics. It's not just about, oh, people liked it when there were simpler talent trees or more complicated talent trees. You know, it's not about that. It's not about the mechanics of, oh, the classic mechanics were more fun for people to engage. Yes, these are all reasons. But there's also a reason, which is the essence of classic, the feeling, the art, the graphics that's 20 years old, and the user interface, which is romantic. I don't think anybody used this word before, the word romantic. Has anybody ever said that the game just feels romantic? It feels more romantic than the salad that was released later on, you know, these weird ambiances in retail WoW, you know? They lack a soul. They lack the feeling that people preferred in vanilla WoW. Didn't this ever cross your mind, you know? As a developer or a manager or someone who's on the board who makes these decisions, if there is anybody who does this, you know? So this was a complete misidentification of what a classic player actually wants. They introduced the menu from retail WoW. The menu that lacks every bit of art. It's just a gray background and options and a cluster, you know, of options, and nobody wants it. People are saying this in trade chat. People are saying this on the forum. People are saying this on Reddit and other places, and they're voicing out their concerns that they don't like this. But apparently, some people don't understand what it means when somebody says, oh, what do you mean you don't like this? It's the same options. You even have more options than before. You know what it means? It means that you're incapable of understanding that people don't just rely on measured metrics. Sometimes they rely on the feeling, the romance, the art, and this the thing that captured them 20 years ago that you can't really replicate, that you failed to replicate for 20 years. Maybe it's something that's not measured by metrics, you know? It's the menu. I'm not saying the menu is the reason why people are playing the game, but once you start introducing these changes, these overhaul changes, it means you're ripping off parts of the game that were essential to it. You see, we're not making a fuss about a menu. The fuss was never about a menu. The fuss is about the idea that you're ripping off things from the game that are an essential core component of the game. I've seen people say, oh, what are you worried about, you know? Why are you worried about this? It's the same options. It's the same. You know, and it's worse when these notions come from players. When players are making these notions, oh, it doesn't make a difference. Oh, it's all fine. Oh, I don't know the psychology of this. You know, I don't understand why they're saying this. Either they're oblivious to the fact that this is a symptom of something bigger, or they're oblivious to the fact that once it happens on something small as a menu, it means it's a gateway to something larger. Maybe a shop. Maybe the token that was introduced to Wrath. We're not blind, you know. You see, these things are quite easy to predict. It's not that difficult to predict these things. You don't have evidence that this is 100% going to happen, or that this is an indicator that this happens, but it is a sign. And you have to rely on these things. And people rely on these things whether you like it or not. Whether your mind is constructed in a very, very rigid way where you need written evidence, a written statement from a classic dev announcing that his intention is to introduce the retail aspects into classic. Otherwise, you will not believe anything. If that is your rigid mindset, then there's no way to convince you, because that kind of written evidence, that statement will never happen. It will never be out there. That written evidence that you're looking for to believe something is never there. Sometimes you have to rely on impressions. You have to rely on deductions. You have to rely on the actions of a person that sometimes speak louder than what they state. You see? And the actions here are indicating something very obvious. We change the menu. We may add more changes. The sacred attribute about classic WoW being that thing that shouldn't be touched is not sacred anymore. That's the message that's being conveyed. It's a very, very hard message for the classic community to swallow. Classic people don't like this at all. And they've been voicing this, you know? I've read a nice comment. Somebody said this is the straw that broke the back. You know, if you have, you know, I don't know, a camel or a donkey, and you lay layers of straw on this donkey. At a certain point, if you lay too much weight on that donkey falls, it breaks. The camel will not be able to transport the goods anymore. It's going to stop. So, what is that layer? That final layer that was added? Well, if you think about it, you can actually stratify that layer into single straws. Add a straw after another, on the other, until the weight becomes so much that the camel or the donkey, in this case the classic community, just can't handle it anymore. And they break. They start to voice their concerns. And I've seen it on the forums. Some posts have been deleted. Some threads have been removed. You know, it's just outrageous. You know, you're taking away from people what they want. You punish them if they go and find it elsewhere, like on private servers, and you don't allow them to voice their concerns, and you ban them, or you delete their threads. What is this? How is it so? How are you so talented in creating this hostility towards you as a developer? How is it so? How are you so good at doing this? How are you so talented at creating this kind of rage? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I'm sure there is some metric in business models, which is the translation of customer happiness to money. Isn't this a metric? Isn't this something that is relied on in meetings and management and decisions? Customer satisfaction, doesn't every website, every store, every place that you go, they always ask you, customer satisfaction survey. Are you satisfied? What is it that you were not satisfied about? Because customer satisfaction translates to money. And the whole notion here is, they're introducing these changes because they want to make more money. They want to add microtransactions. They want to add the shop into Classic and the Classic token and I don't know what, because they want to make money. People are spending all their money on gold sellers. Well, they shouldn't be doing that. They should be giving us the money. And by that, they're totally compromising customer satisfaction. And here's the thing that they don't understand, which is the influence of customer satisfaction on the player base and its translation to money or revenue, I would argue, is stronger than the translation of microtransactions and what revenue is created from that, especially in the Classic community. And I think nobody has raised these points or has spoken about these points in clarity, because we don't have information about this. We're not part of their meetings. We don't know the numbers. And I don't think the business model of Classic, when it was pitched to the company, when those developers, Omar Gonzalez and all these people, I think when they started to pitch the idea of Classic to management, they were also pitching a business model. They were pitching an idea, which is preserving the game as is may actually introduce another revenue stream compared to a game that has microtransactions. You say, what do you mean? A game that does not have microtransactions would make more revenue than a game that does have microtransactions? What are you saying? They say yes. Because here the business model is preserving something old, which the community has stated is the thing they want. Right? They've done the survey. They've done many surveys. They wanted to be so sure about this, and they were sure about this, and the numbers right now confirm it. Classic has been flourishing much more than retail in the past 4 years. Retail is gone, but they don't like this. They don't like this idea. They don't like the idea that Classic is taking over retail. They don't want this because Classic is limited. and the amounts of what you can introduce to monetize it. It's limited. They don't like this. Oh, we introduced a new menu. Didn't you find it much easier to navigate in this new menu? Well, guess what? It's the retail menu. How about you come and try out retail WoW as well? They start to dilute the differences between classic and retail in hopes that this idea would somehow inspire us players to go, oh, I'm going to try retail. What kind of idea is that? Who thought about this? It's nonsense. It's bullshit. We all know where this is coming from. And the dilution of differences between retail and classic is never going to be a reason for us to go back to classic. Let me just make this announcement very clear. It's never going to be a reason to try out retail. You know? Not to go back to retail. No, just try out. It's not going to be a reason to try it. I'm never going to say, oh, the menu seems intuitive. Oh, I found out that the menu is actually the same menu as in retail WoW. Looks like retail WoW is a nice game. Let me go out and try it. And no, this consequence is never going to happen. This is never going to be the part. This is never going to go or happen in the brain of a classic player. A classic player sees the new menu and sees disgust, sees treason. You know, treason to the notion of classic. Oh, we want to preserve the game. No, you're not preserving it. You're taking it out step by step. Oh, and by the way, you're changing a code that is very old. It was admitted by many people who were involved in vanilla or classic that the classic code is outdated and very hard to maneuver around. So they introduced changes with people who have not worked on the original code and who have no understanding of the new of how this code is maneuvered around with. I'm not a programmer, right? But what I've seen from this update were glitches, bugs, and this update was already out on the PTR for quite a while now. It's already been out on the PTR for quite a while. And I've seen bugs. You know, there's something about the name, the pixelization of the graphics. When you zoom out, the name of the character starts to blur. And this is not something about the graphics settings. Some smart people decided to think they're tech experts and say, oh, change your graphics settings. It's not that. I've changed every single graphics settings that is available. I've asked other people, and it was noted. And this observation is something that was agreed upon by different people with different GPUs and different setups. That when you zoom out, the name starts to blur. This is a graphical bug that wasn't there. Vanilla or classic before this patch didn't have this. Why was this introduced? I tell you why. It's because the programming of vanilla was very difficult. It's very, very difficult, and it's different. And whatever they've done it wrong. I don't know what they've done, but they've done it wrong. Because this wasn't there. It's there now. So whatever reason was in between this progress or this transition was a bad reason. It's a reason that caused this problem. You see? That's another issue that you have. Number 3. Talents. Talents were reset. For the first day, there were no talents at all. And then the talents were reset. People said, oh, it's not a big deal, right? They're just going to update the game, and the talents are going to be reset, and that's it. Problem solved. Well, I think it's a symptom of something bigger. I think the people who are programming this seem to lack expertise, to be honest. And I'm no programmer, I wouldn't say this, but if you go to a hospital and you see many patients dying with the same doctor, you may start to question, is he competent? So my question is, are these programmers competent? Is this competence? I don't think it is competence. I think it is a lack of competence. I think it's incompetence. You see? And this is bad, because it was a functioning product. It was a working system that nobody had a problem with. Another point. You got the issue, and different bugs as well. Some people were reporting that the wand does not work on auto attack anymore. I've noticed a bug that when I start to spam trade, if you macro the trade /trade and you spam it, at a certain point it stops spamming, and it stops you from conducting any trades. It says, oh, a trade is still in progress. This was not there before. These are things you would not notice because you don't think as a game tester. As a game tester, you start to do things that you would normally not do just to trigger out the bugs. And I'm sure if you start testing around a little bit more, you're going to find more of these things because it's obvious that the work here was not the kind of quality work that you were expecting, that we were expecting. Another issue, the PvP system. The PvP system in the game was changed. It was catered down to people who don't actually PvP. It was catered down to people who prefer to play this game solo. It's more similar to the retail PvP version than it is to the vanilla one. Oh, and by the way, just to go back to the bugs, I had over 80,000 kills on my character. I now just have 18,000 kills. They were reduced by over 60,000 or 70,000. Something. Just like that, they were reduced. And they were taken away. I don't have the kills anymore. I'm stuck at 18,000 kills. That's a problem. You know what is a problem? Because people who inspect you, they say, oh, how did you get rank 14 with 18,000 kills? You probably had a pre-made that was just carrying you. How much did you pay them? I don't like this, you know? I don't like this. I don't like my reputation to be smeared. I don't like it when people start assuming shit, you know, for something that is a bug in the game that was caused by these incompetent devs and these incompetent programmers. Say, oh, don't insult the programmer. He's just an employee. He's just doing what he's told. Right? Insult the guys in management, you know? What's his name? That guy, that fat guy, Bobby Kotick, whatever, etc. No. No, because this is not... I don't think that Bobby Kotick ordered the programmer to bug the game so that my honorable kills would be deducted by over 60,000. I don't think this was a decision by management. I think that's incompetence. I think it's incompetence by someone who is employed to not be incompetent. And there's no shame in pointing this out. Don't try to guilt me into social pressure by saying, oh, he has family, they have families, etc., etc. Don't put the pressure on them. We're afraid that if you put the pressure on them, management is going to replace them and then they're going to be jobless. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Don't use these tactics. Don't use these social pressure tactics that are intended not to protect the programmers, but they actually have the intention of protecting, the company itself. Whenever you as a customer represent the company, it means you are protecting the company. Whatever reason you are using to rationalize that protection, it means you're standing with the company for whatever reason you have. I don't understand it. But as a customer, you have to represent yourself. Don't go represent the company and use tactics like social guilting by telling me about the programmers and their families. No. No. I want a service, and I need the service to be good. My kills were reduced from over 60,000 to 18,000. What is this? How did this even happen? What is this number? How was this calculated? How was it calculated that 18,000 is the number that it's reduced to? Why wouldn't you reduce it to 0? At least then it would be more believable that it's a bug. But 18,000? You didn't even give me a chance and courtesy to tell other people that it's a bug. Nobody's going to believe that, oh, why was it bugged down to 18,000? It could have been, if it was a bug, it would have been reduced to 0. But 18,000 seems a bit precise. Doesn't sound like a bug to me. You probably bought your pre-made. You see? And that's a problem. These are the things that we face as a player base here because of your changes that you're introducing in the game that nobody asked for. There's no demand for these changes. The new PvP system catered towards people that can solo play. Oh, you just have to get 500,000 honor. Every rank has a certain amount of honor that you need to get to the next rank, etc. No more relationship to other players in terms of standing. And the reason they did it is, because we noticed people were artificially raising the pools. They were doing these ways and these means of altering the PvP system to get the ranks, etc. And that's not true. I have done the rank 14 system on a server that was very low population, and it had a very, very strong organization and cohesion in its team in how they organized it, in how they faced brackets and bracket breakers, and how All of this was organized. It was clockwork. It was a beehive. It was organization to the fullest that I've never seen in any game before in my life, and I don't think I'll ever see this again. It was fantastic. It was fantastic. And most people don't know about these things because most people didn't even bother to go into this grind because it was just too much. But I know it. I've been there. I've seen it, and I've done it. It was clockwork. It was an organization. And it was fantastic. And it relied on the cohesion of the server and some people who would organize everything into place. Yes, there was pooling. There was an artificial increase of the pool, but that's just to deal with what you have if you're on a low population server. Whatever the reason is, they thought, oh, this is people are using bots for this. You know? How about we get rid of this? We don't want any amount of money to be channeled to anything other than Blizzard. For any purpose whatsoever. Don't pay the multi-boxer for artificially raising the pool. We don't want this. We don't want this at all. You should be playing the game and pay us the subscription, and we are going to take the maximum amount of time that you have so you can use that subscription and resubscribe, etc. You're not going to pay the multi-boxer to raise the pool. You will play the game and farm 500,000 honor a week. You say, oh, no, the PvP system was bad, etc. Yeah, you're just repeating what some YouTubers said, you know? Some YouTubers have agenda. Some YouTubers are officially supported and endorsed and paid by Blizzard. Has it never crossed your mind that they sometimes have agenda, and sometimes some community manager just slips a little sentence into the email? Well, how about the next video or the next 5 videos you start to talk a little bit about the PvP system and start to introduce the notion that the old PvP system is bad and say some recommendations of how you want it to be improved, etc. These are agenda. These are agenda that are in support of Blizzard and the changes that they want, shuffled to you and packaged by a classic player who is a YouTuber, who you think is genuine. Maybe he's not. You know, maybe there are agenda here on stake. I read to you some of the posts from people on the forums. They said, I can actually say this is the straw that is going to break the back. Yes, I mentioned this this example. Despite the fact that hey, everything about the recent patch, the changes aren't that big of a deal, but it starts with this kind of crap and then morphs into tokens and other bullshit that gets us right back to the spot retail is now. This guy is smart. He understands the idea of transitioning, a slow transitioning. And this gets me to, this guy's called, by the way, his name is Alisra. This leads me to one of the last points that I want to mention, which is in management circles and companies, whenever you have a guy who comes in who is new in mid-management and starts to take over, that guy needs to make changes, even if these changes are useless. I've seen it. I've seen it in government circles. I've seen it in official lines of work. Somebody whoever gets a new position needs to make changes, and he spreads out these changes across a period of time, so his name always gets circulated. Oh, this guy has made that change. Oh, he has made this change. Why? It's not for the people below, but it's for the people on top who start to verify and who start to judge his work and who do audits for quality. They start to say, oh, this guy is doing some changes. And these changes seem to have not obstructed the flow of work. These changes have actually improved some of these statistics. So this guy is doing some very good changes. He's a very good manager. Let's give this guy another promotion and promote him further up. So this is a strategy that you use as a mid-manager to get up the ranks. Very common, very foul, and very boring. And most of the people who get affected by this are the lower employees, or in this case the players, classic players. Changes that are useless, nobody asked for them, they just rid the game from its romance, But they've done this because they want to go to this morning meeting, to the monthly or the quarterly meeting with the higher ups and say, yeah, we have done these changes and we've seen how the subscription number has risen. It wasn't because of hardcore, it was because of hardcore and the changes. Can you deny that the changes did not contribute to the rise in subscriptions? I guess you can't. I guess you have to include them and give me the attribute of being a cause for a rise in subscription numbers for the changes that I've introduced. This is an argument that you cannot block as a higher up. And why would you? Why would you want to block it? It makes sense. You know, and it's very foul. It's very sneaky. It's very foul and sneaky. But it happens. And I can imagine that something like this happened in regards to these changes. You know, I can imagine that something like this happened, introducing changes that nobody asked for, that were uncalled for, just for that meeting to shine in that meeting and to attribute the rise in subscriptions partially to the changes that I've introduced and I've recommended. You see? There was no thought behind them. There was no actual intention of improving the game whatsoever. It was just a change for the sake of the change, for the sake of personal gain in that regards to that management level. See? Let me read some other comments that I've seen on the forum. Typical corporate government sleight of hand. Make a heap of noise about one thing while making dramatic changes to another without mentioning it, right? So some people are questioning the integrity of Blizzard here. They're questioning the integrity and the intention. They think that this change was announced as a PvP change, but was actually, you know, sneaking in the change of the new interface that's going to lead to the shop or the tokens. That's a very smart point. Blizz is going to change PvP for the people who don't PvP and cry about it. And it's a process of Blizzard trying to fix things, and they ruined the game people wanted back for 20 years and change it to retail trash that we all hated. Good job, Blizzard, you lost the customer. Good luck trying to get me back. Why the hell did you use stealth in layers in this patch? Apparently, layers were added in the game as well. They already were part of the game, and they caused a lot of turmoil back in 2019 because of the huge amount of players who were playing the game. But they somehow stopped somewhere in between. And now they're back. The layers are back and people are noticing it. And people are upset about this. See? So all of these posts are on our official comments. These are comments on the official servers, on the official forum post of the classic era forum, the official one. These are comments about people. These are real people. You know, and the last point I want to say is now is the time for you as a classic community to actually shine. Now is the time for you to show this company that you have enough spine to say what you mean. I personally doubt that this is going to happen. I personally doubt that there is enough spine for players to say, oh, we're not going to subscribe anymore, we're unsubscribing, etc., because let's be real, hardcore is coming out, people are going to want it. They want to try hardcore. I doubt they have the spine to say, okay, we're unsubscribing. I'm not I myself am not going to unsubscribe, and I'm passionate about this. What do you think about other players who are not as passionate? Nobody's going to do this. But the idea that this is turning into a public sentiment is not a good start. It's not a good start for the company, and it's not a good start for financially, and it may highlight the starting point for the decline. It may actually be as dangerous as that. You know, if you have a new private server that comes out and is reliant on Web3, if you haven't heard about Web3, it's a new technology or a new usage of technology where servers cannot be shut down by anybody. Maybe this is the start. Maybe if something is provided and given to these players as a good alternative, maybe a private server where you can export your classic era character into, but with the older version of the game. Is this an option? Maybe. if this happens? Is this going to be a threat to Blizzard? Because if you're on Web3, no lawyer can get to you. No lawyer can stop you. No law enforcement can ever bully you into submission. This is never going to happen. Why? Why create the sentiment? Why even create the beginning of the path that could potentially lead to that? Why do this? It doesn't make sense to me. Just to cash in a little bit of the microtransactions in between, fine. Fine. On the long run, does it make sense? Something, a project that you could keep running for the next 20 years compared to compromising it. I think these are questions that need to be balanced. They need to be thought about by whoever is responsible. I don't think these questions should be taken lightly. And this is all of the leverage that we have as a community. This is all we have. We don't have any other leverage. We don't own any other leverage. This is all we can do in proposing what we have. We can't say, oh, we can't do anything about it, you know. The only thing that we can do is to leave the product if a suitable replacement is there. And we don't want this to happen. We don't even want this to happen. That's why we're saying, oh, what if it happens, Blizzard? How about you start not doing these changes to prevent that from happening? We say this because we don't want this to happen. We want it to be an official Blizzard server. But not this way.